I'm Carla with Race to Walk, and thanks for joining us today. And I am here with Donald Catchings and Paul Fortunato, and we are going to be giving you some tips for aspiring writers. So both Paul and Don are published writers, and so they're going to be sharing maybe some challenges that they had, and giving you some tips on how to overcome those challenges. But before we get started, a little bit about this channel. Here we share good thoughts about good words. And on Tuesdays, I publish videos about books. And then on Fridays, I host a live Bible study on Race to Walk on Instagram. And then I upload that here later to YouTube. So be sure to subscribe to the channel, like this video, and then be sure to hit the bell for notifications so you can get updates about new videos. So we are actually here at Houston Baptist University, and we are here for the TextMoot 2020 by Signum University, and I'll link to their information in the description. But both Don and Paul have presented today. So we just kind of took the opportunity to interview them about their books, and so again, be sure to subscribe for notifications so you can get updates when those are coming out, and so you can check those out. But we just thought we would talk a little bit about writing in general and some of the challenges and how you get through those challenges to really, express yourself and get your work out there. So Don, do you want to start?
Okay, yeah, you know what, I'll start with kind of mentioning what I think has been my greatest challenge as a writer. And a lot of people who are aspiring to write, you're going to have the same problem. You're going to be too much in your own head. That is the number one killer of good work. It's being too much in your own head. If you ever study Tolkien, you'll find out the guy was too much in his own head. He couldn't get out of his own head, and he couldn't write because of it. I think that's the major source of writer's block and things like that. We're stuck on ourselves. We're getting too caught up in what may be, what could be, how can I do this, how can I do that, and trying to create this perfect work, and we're forgetting to just write. And so, I'm challenged with that myself. I think we all are. We sit down and just go blank, or we write and it just doesn't come out. It doesn't feel right. And so, to remedy that, if I could give 3 steps, maybe to help remedy that, 3 things that I think strengthen me and strengthen any writer as a writer. The first part would be just write. Just write. This is, and I've been writing for over a decade, not necessarily just creatively, but I've just been trying to write because I would say I was, like I've said before, I used to write songs when I was a kid, and I was 13 or 14 when I started that, so that's actually 2 decades. Anyway, wow, so I hadn't thought about that. So I've been doing it for a while. The problem is we sit down and we try to write the perfect thing right off the bat. We try to be Charles Dickens' first line, and we try to write something, or like Lewis's, there was once a boy named Eustace Clarence Scrubb, and he almost deserved it. We try to write that first thing, and let me tell you right now, chances are very high you're not going to. So step 1, just begin to write. Don't think, just start writing something. And eventually, you'll start writing, and then you'll start thinking while you're writing, and it'll start molding, and it'll start taking form. And the beautiful thing about today's age is you're typing it, so you can just delete all the junk whenever you're done. Well, all the stuff you look at and go, that's no good. You just delete it and never show anybody. And you're good. And you just write. Start letting it come out. And then step 2, find people who will not just read your work, but enjoy the same topics you like. Get a community of people. That's something I've learned in my master's program, and it's really benefited me as a writer. You have to find people who you can share yourself with. Don't think you have to be a secluded author. You're the only one who's ever thought of your ideas. You have to be original. You can't let anybody look at your work. All of that is a lie. It's not true. First off, you're not original. You're probably not going to be original. You're going to be working off the shoulders of giants. The greatest writers of all time all came before you, and they all wrote better than you do right now, and they all thought the things that you're thinking, they've already thought. So what you need to do is get off a high horse, find people who you can talk to, agree with, and enjoy your time as a writer. Stop making writing a chore and a task. Make it fun. And maybe the third part would be, work really hard at it. There we go. Just try it again, try again.
Yeah, I have to say, talking about, so this is the thing, I've had times when I've written and it just flows and it just comes out. And so I think if I'm not in the flow, that what I write isn't going to be good. And so I've had to learn to just write, even if I don't think that it's good, just write. And the other thing is I am by nature like a pantser. I just want to kind of write whatever I want to write and let it come out. And I have to, trying to, I guess, grow as a writer and start planning a little more and realize that it is a process and it does take work. And my first draft is not going to be my last one, and be willing to just put out stuff that maybe isn't the best and realize that you're going to go over it. And that was one of the things that one of my regrets when I went through the apologetics program was that we always had a forum called the Writers Workshop. We were supposed to post initial drafts of our essay, and we were supposed to be getting feedback and giving feedback on other people's.
Right.
I hardly ever did that. I think I maybe did it one time in the entire process, and I really regret that now because, and the thing was, I was just like, most of the time I didn't have it done early enough to do all that. And the other thing, I didn't want to really read it because I didn't want to have other people's ideas in my head when I was writing. But I regret it now because, especially working on the journal, I could have been a much stronger editor than I am now. And I'm getting into a process, of being comfortable about critiquing people, realizing that this seems perfectly clear in my head, but somebody else reading it might not. And so I need to be willing to modify because you're writing for somebody to read and understand. It's not all about you. So that's hard. I mean, it's not only like you have to mature as a writer, but you kind of have to mature as a person too. Like
Right.
Being willing to humble yourself and take criticism, but also recognize that the writing is your idea, but you have to be willing to take input, but know when you stand on certain things that maybe not everybody's going to agree with you. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like you have to be able to balance that. So,
Okay.
so and Paul's actually, did we say this already? Paul's actually a literature professor at the University of Houston downtown.
So, I have very similar challenges as all of you guys, especially Donald, because, just to get going. And so I read this thing, I can't remember who said it, but she said that, writing is hard, but mining is harder. And if you're a miner, you don't sit around thinking how hard it is to mine for like coal or whatever. You just start digging. And you need to just start digging with writing. It's just, like you said, like every day. And I think that's one thing is to do it every day. And the comedian Seinfeld has this idea, or it was his writing process, because how do you write good jokes? You write every day, 5 days a week. And he had on his wall his calendar, and every day that he wrote, let's say for an hour, he put an X on it. And so then that was sitting on his wall. So he had that kind of pressure, like, I didn't write it, so I've got, and he didn't want to break his streak. So it's just a kind of like emblematic way of thinking about, I'm just going to keep writing. The other thing is what you said, like, how did Tolkien and Lewis write? In a group. And even before that, like Tolkien was always in a group. When he was in high school, he had a group. The TCBSs and so forth. But like the Inklings, they would meet for lunch on Tuesdays, and then they would meet on Thursday evenings in Lewis's rooms to read their writings to each other. Right? And that's how they went twice a week in order to get all that writing done. And so I think, that's a great example. And then the other thing is read books that you love, and I keep talking about Tolkien, but when I was doing my dissertation, which was became the book eventually, which is a kind of a dry academic material, and I needed inspiration, I started reading The Lord of the Rings, because it was just beautiful words and images that would feed my imagination, so that as I'm writing this dry academic prose, I could at least give it some life, and I could enjoy it a bit more. So read things that you love and enjoy. That's going to help you be a writer.
I think that's really important. Like who was it? There's somebody that said this, I can't remember. I'll have to see if I can look it up before I post this video, but somebody recommends you read, if you want to write well, you read good writing, and some people even like wrote it out so you get kind of the flow of it. And I just finished reading the Hunchback of Notre Dame by Victor Hugo, and I don't know if it's his writing that was so beautiful or if it was a translator's, because I was reading the Isabel Hapgood translation. And it is just such, it's like the writing just sings. It's just so, so beautiful. And even in the parts, I've read some people complain about the parts where he's talking about the architecture and stuff, and they think it's boring. But even that, it's just the writing itself is such beautiful, beautiful words. I mean, I think we need to, like, if you're writing and you want to write beautifully, you need to read beautiful writing, I think. So you just get the flow and the tone of it
Right.
in your head. But any final thoughts before we wrap up?
I think that's pretty good. I think we've summed it up pretty well.
Now, all I need to do is I need to follow my own advice.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there you go. There's the trick.
Yeah.
So Donald has actually just published a book called Joy Through Wardrobe. And again, you can go to his website, donaldwcatchingsjr.com. I'll link to it in the description. And if you sign up for his newsletter, you can get an audio version of the first chapter. And again, check out the video with his interview. And he's also a frequent contributor to an Unexpected Journal. And you can read some of his work on his website. And then Paul has a podcast and a YouTube channel at Religious Wisdom and Modernity. So be sure to subscribe to him and follow along in his work. And again, his book on Oscar Wilde is Modernist Aesthetics and Consumer Culture in the Writings of Oscar Wilde. So I will link to that as well. So anyway, those are our writing tips for authors, and we'd love to hear about your journey as a writer and what things have helped you continue on writing. So thanks for joining us. I'll see you next time.